I'm very new at WaterAid, so any problem in this session is entirely my fault, and I will probably be fired. But hopefully, we will have no problems in this session. You will have interesting and entertaining discussions, and I won't get fired. So, this session is about how we can strengthen systems to achieve climate resilient and safely managed and inclusive sanitation. And as my distinguished colleagues will explain in a moment, this session is a follow-up to the very important and very influential global summit on SMS, on safely managed sanitation, that was held in Kathmandu in June of 2024. So, to provide opening remarks, to set the framing for the session, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Sudarshan Neupane, who is Country Director of WaterAid Nepal and who has played a key role in this process. Sudarshan.
Thank you very much, Guy. And good morning, everybody. I know that a few of us are still settling in. In the interest of time, I guess we might get going. I had, like Guy mentioned, the honor and the privilege of hosting that Global Sanitation Summit. I can see some familiar faces who were also part of that summit. And it was a wonderful opportunity to have over 200 people come from over 20 countries. And one of the things that was quite interesting was, again, we looked at how the countries were doing in terms of the system strengthening piece, particularly around sanitation, what the global practices were, and there were all the countries that took part had made some commitment. And I'm happy to let you know that from the Bangladesh side, to organize a regional toilet conference was one of the things that was committed. So you can say, and let's give a huge round of applause for Bangladesh, please. As it also shows that the conferences like this are not only meant to be coming up with declarations, but you're holding yourself, and by doing that, you're holding everyone who were part of that kind of conferences or the global initiatives or the regional initiatives also to hold all of us to account. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity for me in terms of setting the framework. I think it is going to be a wonderful opportunity for us to also hear from the panels and also listen to some of the expertise, some of the initiatives that have taken place, and perhaps some of the challenges and working towards finding solution to some of that. In the interest of time, I'm keeping it like really short, but I really am looking forward to the discussion forward. And I hand it back to Guy.
Thank you so much, Sudarshan, and a round of applause for Sudarshan. So I think we are all a little bit clearer now about the context, and I hope Sudarshan has inspired and activated your brains. We are also accompanied today by my very brilliant colleague, Maya Igarashi-Wood, who is Sanitation Lead at WaterAid UK. And I'm going to hand over immediately to Maya, who's going to talk us through some of the technical detail around achieving SMS. Maya.
I think I have a mic here. Good morning, everyone. Once again, thank you very much for choosing this session among other 4 very interesting and competing sessions. And I'm speaking here on behalf of a global team. As you see here at the bottom of the slide, 3 organizations' logos at the global level, WaterAid, UNICEF, and WHO, who jointly organized the Global Summit on Safely Managed Sanitation last year in Nepal. And then we are framing this session as a follow-up at the regional, South Asia regional, but also at the country context of Bangladesh. And to really bring down some of the key takeaways, recommendations, learnings to more practical level. What does that mean? Does that make sense? So this session is not going to be lectures, presentations, then question and answer, but it's going to be more interactive. So please be ready, and then please ready to be very participative and then moving around a little bit in this room. I can see it's quite packed. I'm really glad. Initially, I was worried that maybe only half of the room might have been filled. So let's get started. As I mentioned, we are going to go through quickly what were the outcome of the summit. And then we will have a group work to look at those different outcomes, key recommendations, and then get your insights. What does that mean for your context, where you work? And then what's happening are the challenges, and then perhaps already working solutions. And then we will have a panel discussion after that to hear some insights from distinguished guests and experts before closing the session. I know you all are experts in the sector, so I'm not going to repeat too much of the definition as such, but to really assure and then refresh, we are sanitation experts, and we are all here understanding that sanitation is a human right, because it is crucial to maintain not only health, but also human dignity and overall well-being. It is considered as a public good because its benefits extend to the broader community. When it is safely managed, sanitation services delivered cost-effective health and also economic benefits, as I had at plenary. So let's unpack quickly some of these with some scientific evidence. Sanitation is a cornerstone of public health, as I said, but we learned last few decades, if not longer, that evidence has shown actually some lower health impacts than we hoped. This study plotted all the large WASH studies, trials, against an index of contamination at the end line, revealed that actually, if interventions do not achieve a clean environment, like Mr. Toilet mentioned, clean environment, not just toilet, there is little or no impact on diarrhea risk reduction. The findings underscore here the need for entire community coverage, area-wide coverage, higher service level to be achieved, and an intervention to address multiple pathways of exposure to pathogens to achieve clean environment. Toilets are not only, but a very important first step in delivering safe sanitation. Here, showing the sanitation service chain, as you've been seeing already, and illustrate the potential risk of failure alongside the chain. And that can result really to the negative health outcomes for communities. This is why it is critical to ensure the risks are managed throughout and each steps of sanitation service chain, from the toilet until the safe disposal, but also reuse. And earlier, already mentioned about the economic benefits. Let's put some figures here. WaterAid, toward the end of the COVID pandemic, did a study to determine the economic case for investments in water sanitation and hygiene. This is not to show that one part of the WASH intervention would do all. We all know that the comprehensive package gives the most synergetic cumulated impact. But here it shows with cost-benefits analysis that actually safely managed sanitation at universal coverage would provide the most significant benefits, net benefits of $86 billion. There was already discussion at the plenary, what counts as safely managed sanitation? And again, you all know, and probably you can cite that probably JMP's definition of safely managed sanitation in this room without looking at it. Yes? No? Oh, I'm not seeing any nods much. Shall we all go back to the university? No, I'm joking. But you've seen on the left side the darker green of the service level of GMP at the global level. That in order to achieve safely managed sanitation, we need to have that improved toilets, not shared, as there was a little bit of argument how we can improve that in the Bangladeshi context in the opening. Having the improved toilet, there are 3 ways in which waste can be safely managed and treated. You all know one is through sewers, and also another one is from on-site sanitation systems, emptied and then safely transferred to a treatment plant and then disposed. But also, we tend to forget the third option. It can be safely managed if the context is right and if there's more space, then of course no risk of contamination to the groundwater. It can just stay in the pit because it stops the risk of pathogen transmission. So that can be, even in the rural area, always a potential opportunity to jump from having a toilet being even basic or before to safely managed sanitation level. And that's aligned with more normative guideline that you might have seen all from WHO. That this normative guideline from WHO provides more detailed practical measures for designing program implementation, what that safe means in your context, not only for the global measuring of that common definition, measurable definition, but what does it concretely mean safe for your country, your context, in terms of design and construction, operation and maintenance, and it provides certain incremental measures that you can take as examples. And we are on this journey, and we are all thinking, how can we accelerate? How can we do better? And at the global level, following the discussion and the learnings from the Global Summit last year, WHO and UNICEF, with a technical review from WaterAid, developed this practical, simplified guide how to accelerate towards safely managed sanitation. It's encouraged to create a shared vision and aligned approach among the stakeholders at the country level. It's also emphasizes the shift from short-term, project-based intervention to government-led, system-strengthening approach to sanitation at both national and local level. It also promotes effective partnership because government alone or one actor alone cannot achieve all. We know how big the challenge is. And then we are aiming to achieve area-wide sanitation delivery for all, and also that service delivery to be professionally managed, regulated, and also resilient to climate risk. So as you've seen in the right side of the slide screen, step 1, 2, and 8 are those more process-oriented, we call it steps, but the elements that you start, of course, from assessing the situation jointly, and then develop, based on identified gaps and needs, an action plan with clear targets. And then at the 8 steps, you will review the progress and also identify adaptive measures. But in between, there are other more core elements of, through the system lens, how to accelerate our country efforts, global efforts toward SDG 6.2, namely policies and regulations, financing, data and monitoring, service delivery, and human resources and capacity. So this guide really aims to facilitate country-level transition towards safely managed services with some example of key questions that you can ask, where the gaps are at each step, and jointly identify priority actions at sector partners and then the coordination groups. For today's sessions, with the limited time, we had a summit for 3 days. So we are going to focus on service delivery at national and subnational level, and then have a deeper dive discussion on 5 thematic areas namely on policy, regulations, financing, data and monitoring systems, and also capacity, and throughout these elements, climate resilience. So let me go through quickly, but also a little bit in depth. What were discussed, what were the learnings at the summit, to give you a little bit of a flavor. On the policy and the regulation side, why sanitation governance matters. This graph shows the countries on track to achieve their national targets on sanitation are actually likely to have regulatory authorities that perform key functions for urban and rural sanitation. These functions include collecting data, publishing reports with the analyzed data, and then taking collective actions to improve the performance and also address non-compliances to standards. In contrast, the acceleration needed country, or let's say off-track countries, are much more likely to report on those functions that they are not implementing. And I'm not expecting everybody to read all of this or understand immediately, but here, to highlight that this meant to convey the message that we need really holistic approach to the sanitation in order to move forward and fast. It showed the main component of and responsibility at a different level, and at each level, government had specific roles and functions to play. The good governance on the sanitation at both levels is important to prioritize and champion sanitation, but also they must have institutional arrangements with clear mandates, roles and responsibilities throughout the sanitation service chain. And as I mentioned already, sanitation is an essential public service, hence government is responsible for delivery, but in partnership with other actors. Robust policies and the regulation ensure safely sanitation and a sustainable service delivery for everyone, and then support private sector participation. Regulating bodies of the services need to be independent and capable of regulating even public service providers. And it's not showing here, but beyond the national level, regional associations, internal networks play important role in facilitating benchmarking among the countries and also facilitating peer learning for implementation. On the financing, recognizing sanitation as a public good does not imply that the public sector has sole responsibility. Private sector can play a key role within such system. And a well-structured and a regulated sector can increase business opportunity and innovative solutions. But first, we need to understand how infrastructure and the service delivery is financed, and also who pays. Once you know the situation, you can develop finance strategies and also investment plans. Strategic resource allocation, and also design smart subsidies that would facilitate where to commit public funding or prioritize that allocation to fill the gaps, to reach the unserved and underserved, and invest in also soft infrastructure like human resources, and then strengthening absorptive capacity of funding. And that can allow catalytic investment then from either public investors and other potential funding sources and instruments to stimulate innovation and financial flow to be sustainable. But the understanding of the situation needs to be regularly, repeatedly done so that we can also see whether there is progress on the sector finance expenditures and identify any gaps to inform policies and the regulations. And I think I already mentioned so many times already the importance of data and the monitoring. If you don't know where you're coming from, it's difficult to determine where I am, where we are. And then again, even harder to determine where we're going and how far we've been progressed against that goal. So first it's to set realistic but also incremental targets and then build and accumulate accurate and reliable baseline so that you really know where you stand. And then that would facilitate monitoring steadily the progress. As it's shown, the flipped pyramid here, upside down. Effective sanitation monitoring is complex, involving different actors and at different levels. From local level monitoring, which serves more for improving delivering quality services, assessing risks, and then identifying demand, and then matching with the supply. But that can feed into the national level monitoring, and that is the basis for regional and global monitoring. And there are a few tools already available that, and also some of you, or many of you, might be already applying. Last two to go. I hope it's not too much information overloading. But human resources and capacity underpins all the other aspects that I just mentioned. And also human resource development and then capacity strengthening is more than just capacity building or a series of training. Very often, based on existing studies done, assessments done, many countries or district level, subnational level, lack sufficient information on sanitation needs and capacity. Sanitation are not prioritized among the sector, hence it's resulting in a lack of jobs. Sector workforce conditions are often poor, with persistent stigma in society. Human resource supply and opportunities of training are not always matched with the actual demand. So what can we do? We can start by conducting human resource assessments to understand the actual workforce needs at that area-wide level, if not at the national level. That helps to develop HR plan at the mid-term, longer term, not the next 3 months, but having that strategy and vision. And also advocate for prioritization of sanitation in job creation. And then improve working conditions, formalize employment, addressing gender equality, raising awareness to enhance sector status and to break down societal barriers. We had a lot in the opening session as well. And then lastly, on the climate. Effective climate resilient sanitation requires integrated system. Juliet mentioned already earlier that effectively but also efficiently move waste alongside the sanitation chain. And then based on the climate risk assessment, the whole, not only infrastructure, but the service delivery models and the management models need to be designed to resist climate shocks at the local level and then reduce the time to return to normal operation quickly. So that safely managed and climate resilient sanitation can contribute to wider environmental and socioeconomic impacts in communities. Been cited here. I'm not going to repeat because you all heard how much the potential, but also how much we know already that sanitation can really play the role and the fundamental ingredients for the better impact and development in other sectors in the wider society. And often we talked also at the summit where to start and to secure climate finance. One point we can start, and it's important to start from at the policy level to put the priority on sanitation there, is that to work with climate counterpart, environmental counterpart, to include sanitation within the priority of these national climate strategies such as NDC and NAP. So I went through really quickly, but with this, instead of you asking questions perhaps that you might have, we'd like to dive into the group work now to go into discussion, perhaps you have questions that you already have, but also sharing of your learnings and also your challenges. We are going to have 5 groups, and we might need more than 5 groups perhaps, but we will see. And already with assigned experts, facilitators ready for the discussion, I will start with the first, maybe I will go through the tasks and then we introduce so that you can start moving to the table. So I did not show in the key three takeaways in a way in each thematic area, but you will have the actual points written as a copy on the table. But you are going to then review those key recommendations from the summit of one of the themes that you choose, and then reflect how those are adapted or relevant to your context. And then discuss potential challenges or existing challenges that you face to actually apply those recommendations. And also share existing solutions or ideas. So then we come back to hear also from experts after that what are the what's working from some example countries. So the first group who would like to join on the discussion around the policy and regulations, please join my colleague Seema from WaterAid Nepal, that table over there. On the strengthening unlocking financing, we have Adnan from UNICEF Bangladesh. So right next to it, it's very good. First group and a second group. And I didn't plan it, but for climate resilient sanitation, here you go. Our Professor Juliet Willetts is going to be facilitating the discussion. If you didn't have a time earlier to talk, maybe this is also the opportunity to discuss and share. The fourth, strengthening data monitoring systems. Yes, Mr. Anthony from WHO Bangladesh is there to join. And then last but not least, on human resources and capacity, we have Alodin from ITN Willetts to facilitate that discussion. So we will have about 20 minutes to discuss all these points, and then we will come to a panel discussion and also hear your feedback. So off you go. I am so sorry to interrupt. Please start to wrap up in 1 minute. Taking notes, we will move on to the next.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can we be calling an end to that fabulous discussion now? So I'm going to break you down gradually from this. Please do be finishing this fascinating discussion because we need to move on to the next part of the session. Okay, I'm going to do a countdown, and when the countdown finishes, I need attention, please. I need attention because Honourable Professor Willetts, I need attention, and everybody else, I need attention now because we are moving to the next part of the session. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Round of applause for yourselves, please. Thank you so much. You did a brilliant job. Unfortunately, please be settling down to your tables now. And please, can we have some quiet like in school? I am sorry to be school teacher, but we do need a little bit, we do need a little bit of quiet now. Please, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to Maya for moderating that activity. Thank you to table facilitators. Gentlemen, please, we are entering the next phase of the session. Thank you. We are now going to move to a panel discussion. Before that, I want to mention one very interesting piece of a finding from my group, which identified that grassroots organizations that work in sanitation have difficulty accessing big climate finance. That's just one snippet of the discussions we have had, which I thought was interesting. So now we're going to settle back like we're watching a very interesting movie, and we're going to hear some reflections on this debate from our very distinguished panel. So let me briefly introduce our panelists and panelists. When I mention your name, I want you to stand up and briefly dance the Macarena, or any dance that you choose. No, I'm sorry. That Maya doesn't approve that. So you don't have to dance the Macarena or anything like that. First up, we have Miss Sudha Shrestha. And Sudha is National Professional Officer. Oh, you did. Excellent. At UN Habitat in Nepal. Can I ask you to take your place at the panel desk? And we also have Mr. A.H.M. Kalikur Rahman, who I think we can call Hasnat. Is that right? Hasnat is a superintending engineer at DPHE, Department of Public Health Engineering, here in Dhaka. And I believe Hasnat has excellent understanding of progress around SMS in Bangladesh. And finally, we're going to hear from Professor Juliet Willetts, who you will all have seen earlier, of the University of Technology, Sydney, who is a leading global expert on sanitation research. Round of applause, please, for the panel. Okay. Julia, I'm going to put... Oh, you didn't want me to put you on the spot first?
I'm ready.
I'm going to put you on the spot first because you were in the group that was talking, one of the groups that was talking about climate resilience. And I wonder if you could give us some reflections on that discussion and maybe any experience from around the world that you think is relevant to this. Juliet.
Sure. So our three key messages about climate resilient sanitation that Maya shared from Nepal were firstly, moving waste along the chain quickly. Secondly, focusing on emissions but not at the detriment of the public health imperative. And the third one was about NDCs and national adaptation plans. So the discussion we had was first about the waste along the chain, that we shouldn't forget the infrastructure at the beginning, and that particularly in rural areas, the type of infrastructure that we use, we need to think about both about things that can be very robust and are sealed, and also things that can be quickly repaired, and that maybe we need to think about systems that can be moved from place to place. We talked about mobile systems that could be moved, or superstructures that could be dismantled. If there was an early warning system that there's going to be a cyclone, you dismantle and then you put it back. So we had a discussion around infrastructure and thought that that should be included. And the message of moving waste along the train mentioned the idea of an integrated approach. And people said that that needs to include policy and guidelines on what is climate resilient sanitation, needs to include the governance arrangements, needs to include capacity and awareness of community members. And people thought that that was missing from the key messages from Nepal. And lastly, on NDCs, it was mentioned that here in Bangladesh, for the NDC, there is mention of wastewater, but it doesn't talk about which types, and it doesn't yet make sure that that would be inclusive, for instance, of rural, of different scales of urban wastewater. So those were some of the messages from our session.
Thank you very much, Juliet. And I know our table too discussed climate resilient sanitation. We haven't got time to look into what they were discussing. Hasnat, I'm going to turn to you, if that's okay. And I think maybe at this point it's interesting to hear a little bit of the detail about how Bangladesh is progressing towards SMS in general, how it's progressing towards the commitments or the actions decided at the Global Summit, and in particular with reference to climate resilient sanitation.
Thank you. Thank you for informing me to come here and describe the progresses. Basically, from the Global Sanitation Summit, we committed many plan, like short term, mid term, long term. Many of them are under processing, and we actively working on that. Also, there is a commitment for around carbon dioxide emission study. We already working with low emission our technologies for our different project through our different project, and we implementing low emission technologies like we are constructed wetland we have for waste treatment. We have safely managed sanitations, twin pillar tree and other issues which are already low emission technologies, and also we're working on FSM technologies and also this type of technology, but we don't know how much emission it is reducing or how much sanitation contributing to emission. But, so our another commitment was we should have a research on that. So this year WaterAid started a study aiming to assess the emission because we need a evidence-based reference. Hopefully, it will create a good reference for us. And also, you mentioned around the NDC, nationally determined contribution. Also, our another commitment was to add sanitation in this determination, but there is a wastewater sector is there. Sanitation is covered in that way, but still in our NDC, sanitation is not a focused area, a distinct focus area. So if we get the study findings, then this will be a great reference for contributing the sanitation as a distinct priority in the NDC. And also our another commitment was the inclusion in the NDC. So I talked about that. So with these updates, we are trying our best to create progress in our commitments. So I wish we will meet the commitments with the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hasnat, and I'm very interested to hear this reflection that better research around the relationships between sanitation and greenhouse gas emissions can be helpful for achieving the policy change that you require. And I know that globally there is a lot of research in this area and a lot of work being done and published. So hopefully we will see some change in that. Thank you, Hasnat. Sudha Shrestha from UN Habitat in Nepal. I know that you have a really excellent understanding of citywide services and citywide sanitation in municipalities throughout Nepal, from the high mountains right down to the low plains and all that's in between. And I wonder if you can give us any insights into how people are working towards SMS, citywide sanitation, town-wide sanitation in the Nepali context.
Thank you, Norman. Basically, the focus on sanitation, though it is still diluted in Nepal, started from Constitution 2015, where water and sanitation is regarded as one of the fundamental human rights. At 2015, when we came to 2015, it's only realized. And then now the sector, Ministry of Water Supply, have all the elements of policies, like from WASH policies to WASH Act, and now recently in 2025, the WASH regulation as well. So in this line, Ministry is also working in the data system. It is called NWASH MIS system, where all the municipalities' data has been into the national portfolio or portal as well. But this also, the challenge is that water supply is much more heavier than the sanitation part, because water supply is 100% done census, but with sanitation, it is only 10% profile that we include in that NWASH system. And from that NWASH system, we also have the wash plans of municipalities generated by this data portal. And this wash plan is more like aligned to evidence-based investment at the municipal level. But still, it is a little bit complicated because we are still monitoring whether those wash plans, municipal wash plans, are really translated into the annual investment and program plan as well. So this is one of the challenge. And when you talk about the citywide inclusive sanitation, the policy explicitly spells municipal-wide inclusive sanitation at the wash policy, national wash policy, which means that the priority is there for sanitation services. But like it is included, and also sensitization at the municipal level is going on for the municipal-wide inclusive sanitation plans as well. But one of the drawbacks and one of the challenge is the political will in these things, because mostly the political will is more into investment in infrastructure rather than going through the whole service chain of sanitation services. So when we, and Nepal, after this open defecation-free country declaration, we still have slippage of 5%. And then with the diverse ecology of Nepal, from, as you mentioned, from hill to the plain Tarai region, the technological choice needs to be quite diverse in context of our terrain as well. But when we talk about the blanket technology and blanket approach at all levels, then that is the major failures with the sanitation services as well, because currently the focus is on FSTPs, but we are not thinking about the whole service chain of those, how it can be operationalized. So the major challenge is on operational and maintenance and the skilled human resource to operate that, and the technical skills for really to look into the whole service chain of municipality. But still, we are looking and lobbying for this sanitation service regulation, and for Nepal, only 10% of population are connected to the sewer line. But the envision is that always the focus is on sewer service rather than on the on-site services. So 89% population living in on-site sanitation services, relying on on-site sanitation services, how we are going to regulate that and how it can be serviced through the municipal authority, because municipalities are mandated for all these services. So I think I stop here. Thank you.
That is fabulous, Shrestha. Thank you so much for that. It's really interesting to hear your analysis of how Nepal is making very strong progress, but facing all sorts of challenges, including political will, which will not be a problem unknown to most of us. So we've had some fascinating discussions around climate resilience, around citywide sanitation, around tracking progress from the Global Summit. But I think there is a word beginning with G that Juliet would like to talk about. Is that right? What's that word?
What's that?
Of course, we haven't yet talked about gender, and climate and gender are two very separate things. It can seem, one month we have a training session about gender inclusion, the next month we have a training session about climate resilient sanitation, and they can seem like separate things, but in the end they're the same toilets and the same sanitation systems. Is that right?
They're the same people using the toilets. So something I wanted to share, I already gave a few ideas on the linkage this morning in the keynote. But here I wanted to focus a bit more about women and men's different experiences, because we did research together with SMV in Bhutan, Nepal and Laos, and we used a tool called the WASH GEM. It's Water, Sanitation and Hygiene Gender Equality Measure. And in that gender equality measure, it's an intra-household measure where you ask women and men the same questions within the same household. So much of the data we collect, whether it's on climate resilient sanitation or anything else, it's just at household level. But if we want to understand gender perspectives, we need to ask women and men separately because they may have different experiences. And what we learnt from our use of that tool in those 3 countries was, firstly, they had very different perceptions of the climate events they'd been through. If you asked whether or not there had been floods or how severe they were, women and men described them very differently. The men in one place, in Nepal, for instance, described that there were more floods and that they were more severe. And it's to do with their livelihoods, it's to do with their role in society, of what our perception is of the events we're subjected to. Women and men also had very different views about how well prepared they felt for those events and how quickly they were able to recover. And one of the most important findings was in Bhutan. We asked, well, in all 3 countries we asked, but in Bhutan is where we saw a difference, was how distressed do you feel during a climate event when you cannot access your sanitation service? For the men, it was the same during normal times or during a climate event. For the women, it was fine during normal times. During a climate event, they were very distressed. And that's to do with the privacy, the safety, all the things that we already know that are issues for sanitation and for women. But we could see with climate change how they were differently impacted. So I think my message is that it's very important for us to hear about individual experiences of climate change and the impact on sanitation services. And with that knowledge, we will be able to design programs and approaches that are responsive to those different needs and experiences.
Thanks so much, Julia. And I take the point that it's very much about individual experiences, but I want to just turn to Sudha now and ask a different sort of question. So we talk about gender-inclusive toilets, and we know what a gender-inclusive toilet looks like, and we know what gender-sensitive sanitation infrastructure at the household level should look like. But when we talk about gender-sensitive sanitation systems, what does that mean?
So when we talk about this gender-sensitive sanitation services, lots of diverse impacts are there. Firstly, the traditional conventional taboos that will lie on our societies as well. So one of the example of Nepal is when we had this sanitation campaign in Nepal, there were lots of hue and cry because the daughter-in-law and father-in-law cannot use that same toilet. So the transition and transformation for that took quite 10 years, but still there are hidden taboos that is there. And another is the menstrual health and hygiene that affects the woman the most, woman and girl child the most. So there are like high school dropouts there, and even at the household level, when they are not access to sanitation facilities during menstruation, it is definitely a hue and cry for women and girl child to bear that brunt. So these are some of the localized taboos that is impacting the services to the larger extent as well. And as Julia had mentioned, the disaster and emergencies even aggravates that access. Okay. And when we talk about the whole system, service system of sanitation, we need to look into from the very beginning of sanitation facilities, whether that is accessible to all the family members. When we talk about public toilets, then all the segments of the society, whether the children can use with safety, whether women can use with safety, whether the disabled or differently abled individual can use that safely. And the whole system revolves around how these toilets are constructed and how the W's are impacting into these usage as well.
Understood. Understood. But I am going to cut you off, and I'm really sorry to do that. But we're running out of time, and that was a fascinating answer and really got to the point. But we've only got 1 minute left, and I want to give that minute to Hasnat. Hasnat, I think you've been involved in what's called the Integrated Municipal Information System, in Bangladesh, which is tracking progress towards SMS. You can give us a bit more detail about that, and how does that involve any tracking of gender inclusion and gender sensitivity, for example?
Okay. Before saying about that, I just missed one progress of our commitment that we had to observe a toilet conference. So today we are here. So this is one of the most progress.
Yes, you
towards our commitment. I missed that.
Well done.
So regarding our IMS system, basically our plan was to create a national command center, but we started our journey. But we did many workshops and accompanying with the sector, government, and other stakeholders. But it seems too much difficult or impractical in sense that data collecting from different organizations and also DPHE, we are as a basically implementing organization. So commanding or this type of regulatory activity will not say the light of success. So we decided to create a national sanitation dashboard, NSD, incorporating the IMIS system. That is, the real-time data will be captured from the municipalities, and a national dashboard will track the progress, and the dashboard will be ready with updated real-time and validated data. So we, through many workshops, we formulate the structure of it, engaging the A2I, engaging our ICT division, engaging the Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, which is responsible for the data through our country. So currently, process is going on. Through this process, our Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and GWSC is supporting us in incorporating the good success stories of the global scenario, and also ensure the data-driven approach system development. So after developing this NDS, that is National Sanitation Dashboard, we wish that all the updated, real-time, and validated data is ready. Then the progress can be easily tracked. Then the gap can be easily identified. And then a stakeholder or policymaker can take the decision, create, plan any project, and can implement uniformly. That is, no one can be left behind. We have 330 municipalities. Already we are working with 80 municipalities. Then if we can cover all the municipalities through this system, then it will be great for us to work with the supplementary sanitation. Thank you.
Thank you. And we would love to hear more about the National Sanitation Database. And I know I'm not giving Hasnat sufficient time. I would love to hear more about the difference between mobile and permanent solutions from Juliet. I would love to give more time to Sudha to tell us about gender-sensitive systems in Nepal. But we don't have time. What we do have time for is 2 very quick questions from the audience, if anyone would like to. And that hand went up so fast it nearly shot off into space. Madam, please tell us your name and put your question to the panel.
Hi. So I am very passionate about the gendered aspects that comes from climate change that affects sanitation as well. So I'll take a little bit time, but one of the things that I have seen in a Upojela named Shamnagar in Satkhira, there is a community Burigoalini. The name of the place is Burigoalini. Okay, so there is a community where women do not have access to sanitation. They are fisherwomen. They have to use salty water. There are lots of women who do not have access to safe water. They have, for using salty water for a very long time, they have developed uterine diseases and whatnot. What happens is the men of the family, they actually leave them. They go marry someplace other. All the needs of that family falls on that woman. So my question too is, what is my country doing for this woman? They do not have access to safe water. They do not have access to sanitation. They are using salty water for a very long time. Their men of the house have also left them. What is my country doing for this?
Juliet, I'm going to throw that to you. If there is one more question for the audience, please put your hand up. We'll be thinking about that.
My answer is, it's not a direct answer. It's prompted by a discussion this morning about how do we raise the issue of sanitation to a much, much higher level amongst the whole public and the country. We watched the video about how much fecal waste is going into the environment, etc. So my question to all of us is, how can we get more public support for sanitation and for water and make more demands of government? Because I think we've been working with government in many good ways, but until we get a wider public support for the issue of water and sanitation, then the issues of the women that you describe, they won't be addressed. So somehow we need to elevate these experiences. We need to make them more visual, more seen, picked up by journalists, so that they're voiced more broadly and there is more public demand for water and for sanitation. I know it's not a satisfactory answer, but I think it's one of the strategies of how we need to work together.
Thanks so much. You can add, but very, very quickly. What you're saying is very important.
Yeah. Most of the data that are available do not actually show this scenario. So we want data that actually show this scenario. Please work on it.
Juliet or the people of Bangladesh need to work on that?
Yeah. I'm gonna be really quick.
Good.
Yeah. Guy really asked me to keep it very short, so I'm going to head off straight away. So my question is, how does that intersectionality or the diversity comes into the picture? Because only talking about gender, do you think it would be sufficient enough for us to get into the depth of it? If not, how do we ensure mainstream intersectionality or the diversity piece into that?
I'm going to pass that to Sudha. You have to discuss complex words like interdimensionality. How many syllables? Lots of syllables.
Okay, so interdiverse sectionality. Definitely, the people we here are sitting together, we have different needs and different requirements when it comes to sanitation as well. So that means how can we segment the needs and mainstream that most sectionality will be able to access those sanitation services. Basically, when we talk about the public toilets, definitely all the segment like pregnant women, children, elderly, disabled, all the segment needs to be access to that infrastructure services. But how that can be done is still some of the challenges are addressed, but still it's a long way to go to fulfill that. Everywhere we have that accessibility all the time for the people, all the people, yes.
Thank you so much, and I hope that has answered your question, Sudarshan. We have given the women of the panel so much voice that Hasna has no voice. I'm sorry, but I know there are many questions that we would like to ask Hasna as well. Please give a big round of applause for our incredible speakers. Thank you so much. No dancing required, and I now hand back to Maya. Maya has to dance. No, you don't.
During the lunchtime, perhaps, or at the gala later. So thank you very much, Guy, also for a very engaging panel discussion. So we are about to close the session. So I would like to invite Mr. Syed, Adnan, Ibna, Hakim, WASH specialist of UNICEF Bangladesh, to share some of the insights, key points of today's session before the official closure. So please come to the, if that's okay, to stand here at the podium.
Thanks, Maya, to inviting me to summarize the session. Actually, when she approached me 2 days back, I thought less participant always goes for the technical session and I can wrap up. But it's opposite today. And wrap up the session is a little bit complicated sometimes. But let me give a try and see. So as we all know from this session, so this is more focused to how the system could be strengthening to accelerate the safely managed sanitation. So at that system, more on the policy and more on the other issues we focused on. So at first, from the presentation of the Maya, so we try to understand so how other influencing factor, so this is playing the role for the sanitation and to taking it forward. After that, actually, the main focus we go, and if we summarize the 5 key thematic area that we discuss under the our group discussion. So one is the governance and policies. So at that policy and governance, so the group discussion and the people's they summarize their achievement and their challenges. So and also the policy is followed by the finance and the climate resilience, sanitation, data, and the human resource. The all are integrated. And definitely, I hope after that one, so what we didn't give the chance for the group to present their challenges and achievements, but after the sessions, it will be compiled and it will be shared with everyone. So that is the part. And the panelists also, as the our 3 really very knowledgeable panelists we got, and thanks to them. So if we summarize their panel discussions, and the first from one key part, so this is the regulation that Nepal tried to showcase. And for the Bangladesh and other countries, we are also trying to focus on the regulations and actually strengthening the system and getting the output from the system. Regulation is a key. Without the regulation, this fragmented sanitation sector and the sanitation is more challenging, as this is the household level business. Each and everyone at the household, they are managing their sanitation, and regulation only can give the hope for managing it safely. Otherwise, it's really challenging. So we could discuss, and you can also discuss from the Nepal experience, and it could be help us in Bangladesh what we are trying for the regulation. And from the Department of Public Health Engineering, so they really focus on the key point. So we are discussing about the sanitation and the climate change and the technology and its impact, but it's required the much more measurable and quantifiable data that we could say from the sanitation, from the green climate change and the green gas emission, how much we are contributing. Still, we are not quantifying that one. So this is required. And if we can quantify, we could achieve and we could set our target. So thanks to Department of Public Health to highlight that one. And also the one step they took. So in future, the sector could be like collaborate. This is the integrated management system for the sanitation and the national dashboard. So hopefully it will be go forward properly, and we'll get the reliable data that help to planning and strengthening the path. And also from the Juliet, so she gave the emphasis, and this is required, like the gender is a critical part, and this is very much close to the sanitation, as this is the privacy, security, and the safety all are related, and this is very much vary between the male and the female. And from the audience, actually, we got the real example how the climate change and the sanitation is impacting the community and how they're displacing and the migrating. And thanks to raise the our audience that want to ask. And if we got the more time, hopefully audience could share more vibrant experience. But we have the 1 and 2, almost 2 days, and these topics we could keep continue discussion and take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for summarizing in a short few minutes of so much of the topics that we try to cover in this session. So for the official closing, I'd like to invite Mr. Sorry if I pronounce incorrectly, Eheteshamul Russel Kambai, the additional chief engineer of DPHE. Please applause for as he comes over to the stage.
Thank you and good afternoon. Already she says this is the time for lunch. Actually, so this in the meantime we conclude an important session. Thank you, honorable participants and esteemed panelists. In the meantime, we conclude an important session named Strengthening System Towards Climate Resilient and Safely Managed Sanitation. I extend my heartfelt appreciation to all, especially our panelists, for their individual contribution. Actually, today's discussion have very refrained the urgency of addressing sanitation challenge through a system-wide approach that integrate governance, finance, climate resilient, data-driven approach, and human resource capacity building. Actually, from this session, throughout the session, what can we achieve? Firstly, I say that in this session, we developed a shared understanding in many, in our discussion, we developed a shared understanding of how we can develop a system standardizing approach that can be accelerate the progress towards safely managed sanitation. And another, we have from this session exchange practical experience from diverse context on climate resilient and inclusive sanitation solution. And then we identify, we identify in here some tactical gaps and our potential strategy to address these issues. In the meantime, what can we take away, and what are necessity to moving to forward? Firstly, we said that it is required to develop leadership and institutional strengthening system, and then climate resilient and universal coverage that can be achieved. And then we talked some ideas about the sustainable financing also, and how data-driven decision making can be done to this system. And finally, we have the skilled workforce, how to develop skilled workforce. And in this today's work session, we conclude our discussion. It marks the beginning of our ongoing commitment to achieve safely managed sanitation, how to develop. As a person of Department of Public Health Engineering, This department is mandated for water supply and sanitation all over the country. We remain dedicated to strengthening policy, governance and financial mechanism for climate resilience and inclusive sanitation to all. We encourage continue engagement with national and global network to share best practices to mobilize resources. Let us work collectively. We track the progress through structured monitoring and mechanism and ensure accountability to all levels. And finally, once again, I extend my sincere gratitude to our panelists, moderators, and participants for their active engagement. I look forward to seeing the momentum generated today translate into concrete action that enhance sanitation service across Bangladesh and all our developing countries also and beyond. Thank you all. Thank you for patient sharing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is the official closure of this session. Once again, thank you very much all for your active participation right from the beginning. And then I'm not going to stand here anymore between lunch and you. So please enjoy the lunch. And then, yes. Sure. Yes.
Hi, I'm Ruchika from IRC. We work on a project called Wash Systems for Health. WaterAid is a partner, SNV is a partner. And Guy, actually you raised a question with respect to what's water gender-sensitive system strengthening. So we've together come out with a working paper, and that's available on the IRC website for those interested to know what gender-sensitive and social inclusion is when we talk about system strengthening. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your lunch. Thank you very much.